2003 and gave us another 17 years. He walked Kara down the aisle. All the grandkids got to know him. Celebrated 50 years with my mom, so, I think 53. Well, you crossed the border. I mean, come on, 50. Once that's over 50. So, today's a little bittersweet, right? But we want to try and celebrate him the way he lived, and that was, talking to people, laughing, and just being with everybody, and and being outside. So that's what we're going to try and do today. So my family and I are going to pop back up here, and I'll come back at the end and share some stories about him. And we'd be honored if anybody else had anything that they wanted to share. And if you don't want to share, that's fine too. The last 10 days have taught us how important life is. So appreciate you being here, and I'm trying not to be a blubbering idiot. See you in a little bit.
Can you hear me? Yeah, good. Okay. My name is Gina, married to Craig. I'm not as well spoken off the cuff as Craig, so I had to write what I wanted to say down. I was hoping to share with you what it was like to be Bert's neighbor and daughter-in-law. First, to be Bert's neighbor. Wow, did I hit the neighbor jackpot. I often said that my honey-do list was complete before Connie's. Sorry about that, Mom. Whether it was as simple as needing a 3-prong attachment for Christmas lights, looking at a downspout that wasn't working properly. That was an easy fix, by the way, it was just duct tape. Or trapping one of the many raccoons that would visit our back deck. Dad was over in a flash because, well, one, let's face it, he was really nosy. And 2, he was just always willing to help. Sorry. You need a paper. I know. I needed to make the font large, too. These old eyes. My messiest project, and the one that I will be forever grateful for, I found a little mouse in our garage. Let me explain this one a little bit further. One afternoon, I thought I would clean out our garage. Simple enough project for the day. And I come across a stack of Tupperware storage bins, and for whatever reason, I decide that I want to unstack them. Well, I find a mouse, and I don't do mice, so I call Dad for help. No problem, he was already in his shed, so he hops in his gator and is over within minutes. Well, upon further investigation, it wasn't one mouse, it wasn't 2 or 3, it was 3 generations of mice. It had to be about 30 to 40 mice. I was beyond grossed out, freaked out, and I just wanted them out. But what was Bert's response to me, or for me? Well, Gina, why did you have all this grass seed? There were different priorities there, obviously. Oh, sorry. Now, to be his daughter-in-law, sorry, that's a blessing. A blessing because I get to see a little bit of Bert every day in our 3 boys. Teddy, he inherited Pop's hard work ethic. When the boys would help Pop do various jobs around the house, picking up sticks, rototilling, waxing his pickup, Bert would always text me right away. Boys did a really nice job today. All worked really hard. But Teddy, is his arm okay? Because he really stuck with it. And Cooper was always the first one to go see if Pop had any work that needed to be done. And while Cooper does not always stick with the entire job, he is most curious to find out what is going on and how everything needs to work. They shared a love of fishing, sitting and talking, and fried clams. And Griffin, if you have ever had the pleasure to have a conversation with Griffin, well, you will know all too well that he has inherited Pop's gift to gab. He will talk and talk and talk until you get that glazed look in your eye. Now, I will admit now that I would occasionally zone out when Bert would tell me about who used to live in the house, over on such and such road 50 years ago, what they used to grow on that farm, but then they sold it to so-and-so, who is married to what's-her-name. They have 3 kids together. One lives in Delaware, the son is a pilot, the other daughter now lives in Morristown. I would zone out, but at the same time, I could listen to that story 10 times over and love every minute of it. The boys were in awe of Pop, and I think they just thought he was one of them. He was like a novelty. I cannot tell you how many times when friends would come over to our house, I would hear them say to their friends, "Do you want to go see Pop?" "Yeah, sure." And off they'd go. Last page. Okay. Lastly, I need to thank Bert. Thank him for sharing his farming knowledge with the boys and I, always being patient with us, and treating us to the many gummy snacks. Thank him for keeping our lawn well manicured. He was a bit obsessed. And thank him for raising a somewhat handy, his method of measuring is questionable, hardworking and caring father and husband in Craig. But most importantly, I need to thank Bert for not showing me those baby pictures of Craig when we first started dating. I don't know if you saw them today or last night, but this would have never happened if I saw those baby pictures. So, thank you. Love you, Bert.
Hi everyone, I'm the oldest and the tormentor of the 2 that you see sit here. I'm Christy, in case you don't know me. And I am wearing bifocals, much to my brother's amusement, because yes, I will be turning 50 this year. I'm not afraid to say how old I am. And that also leaves me with a lot of blessings because I had 50 years with my dad. So I'm a teacher, I need to have talking points, so if you'll excuse me with my notes. But when I was reflecting on my 50 years with my dad, there were 4 big things that came to mind, some basic lessons that he taught me and my brother and sister. The first one was love. Dad taught me about love every day by the way that he treated others. He taught us how to love first by loving our mother, he was married to for 53 years. They set the bar for us by demonstrating what a wonderful marriage should look like, and they lived through the ups and downs of life and the craziness of raising us 3 kids. Dad always said it was why he had no hair on his head, because he raised the 3 of us and taught us all to drive. But Dad was very patient. He was slow to anger. Mom was the tough guy in our house. So we knew that if Dad ever raised his voice to us, which wasn't often, but we knew it was time to scatter because we didn't like him when he got mad. Dad demonstrated his love for the 3 of us every day. He also found time to juggle the demands of farming and still come to all of our plays, our piano recitals, our sporting events. He perfected his dad's skills, and then he was an even better pop to his 6 grandchildren. He was a hands-on grandpa. He patiently taught all of us to fish. He taught Craig's sons how to grow a garden, and all the kids loved riding in his gator, which we've parked out here for you to see today. He was Kaylee's father figure and her biggest cheerleader after Kaylee's dad passed away in 2011. He taught me about love through his acts of service and generosity. He found purpose in fixing things for others, taking family or friends to appointments, sharing the vegetables in his garden, taking friends and family out to dinner to enjoy a good meal and fellowship together. Well, after my first husband passed, Dad became my go-to fix-it guy. And I called him when I needed help with auto or household repairs or jobs that were more difficult than just changing a light bulb. I always said Dad's hours were good and his rates were low. When it came to household maintenance, he'd say to me, "You know, you really need to know this." And I reminded him I taught first grade and that wasn't part of my curriculum. I just held the flashlight, and sometimes I didn't even hold that right for him. So we always laughed, as Craig's mentioned, that as long as Dad had baler twine, duct tape, and WD-40, he could fix just about anything, or at least jury rig it to work. Another lesson I learned from Dad was to focus on simple things in life. Dad was raised a Quaker, and if you know anything about Quaker beliefs, one of them is a commitment to practicality and simplicity. Dad loved nature and the satisfaction of caring for nature, seeing things grow, whether it was a dairy cow or the plants in his garden. He and Mom loved to travel, And together they saw examples of God's beautiful landscapes in places that were in the United States as well as overseas. He took lots of pictures, so we got to kind of travel vicariously with them. And he would describe in great detail all the things that they saw and all of their trips. He taught us not to be concerned about appearance, not to focus on the small things that didn't matter in the big picture. As an example, one year the base of my mailbox broke, and Dad offered to fix it. He came over with a metal pole, probably something he had in the garage or in the scrap pile somewhere around here, and baler twine, of course. And he used the pole to kind of bolster the broken base, and then used the baler twine to keep the poles together. And when I expressed my concerns about, this is kind of an eyesore, Dad, and I lived on a main trail in Medford Lakes, and these people are going to be driving by and looking at this, and kind of think, what kind of, situation is this? He winked at me and he said, it'll show them you're a farm girl. And then he proceeded to tie all the baler twine in little bows from the top to the bottom of the mailbox. He loved to tease us. He told us never to take ourselves too seriously, get hung up on appearances. When Mom went back to work after her child-rearing sabbatical, as she calls it, if we became sick at school, he would be the one that would have to come and pick us up, usually in the old farm truck. And he'd have a quick farmer's shower, if any of you know what that is. And then he'd slide over. He had a ton of sweatshirts and hats and corn cobs and all kinds of crazy stuff on the seat and make room for us, and then he'd take us home. The last and the most important thing Dad taught me was to live life with a positive attitude. He was one of the most positive people I ever met, and he told us that even in the most difficult times of life, there was always a silver lining or a lesson to be learned. Back in 2003, when Dad dealt with serious medical issues that kept him in the hospital for 3 months, I'll never forget the positive mindset that he showed through his recovery. The doctors at the University of Penn would come in with all the medical interns, and they would say to my dad, "How are you today, Mr. Jones?" To which my dad would quickly reply, "I'm great." And we'd look at him and go, "God, he looks like hell." Like, oh. Those days he looked like he'd been hit by a truck, but every day, "I'm great." So his motto, "Every day is a good day," was one that he adopted and continued to live by. And we were so lucky that he had 17 more years of good days with him after that. I'll miss Dad's sense of humor. He loved a good laugh. He loved to tease all of us. He was another big kid that Mom had to keep in line as well with all of us. And I'll miss Dad's wisdom. He was our consumer reports guy. So if you were looking to buy a new appliance, a computer, or a new car, Dad would look up all the Consumer Reports ratings and probably tell you more than you ever wanted to know about that product. And as Gina mentioned, Dad had a way of explaining things in such detail that sometimes your eyes would glaze over and you would kind of forget the question you'd asked him in the first place. He was always my go-to guy when I had to make big decisions. I valued my dad's opinion and his perspective. So Dad, even though you didn't teach me how to say goodbye, I'm going to take your advice and I'm going to look at all the positives. You've left us with a legacy of love, many happy memories, and so many stories to share about times we've laughed and loved together as a family, and you've also left so many friends to share stories of happy memories. So we celebrate you today, Dad, and a life well lived. Thank you.
Well, I guess that leaves me. The city mouse, the middle child, and the one who was probably not privy to all of Dad's fix-it advice. I don't know if that was a good or a bad thing. But anyway, the last year with COVID made it hard to see that. The last time I saw him was, I spoke to him, talked to him, saw him in person was the end of August when he came up to see me and our family in Greenwich, Connecticut. And Dad was really excited because we had plans to renovate our house, and of course he had a lot of input, including needing to have our laundry on the first floor. We were planning to have it on the second floor, and we argued about that. Sorry, Dad, it's still going to be on the second floor. But anyway, Dad was excited to see our plans He was excited to talk about them. And he was in the process of making a book, much like he did for Craig and Gina as they built their house. I'm sure they were really happy to know all the ins and outs of watching that from Dad's perspective. So I guess we'll miss out on that, but at any rate. So in thinking about all of that, it made me think of all the things that I'm grateful for my dad. Which seems to be a theme today. So the first is his technological edge. Dad was always on the cutting edge of tech, whether it was videotaping every concert. And I'll say that thankfully I was married after Tad got to see some of my high school performances at RV, and he might not have married me if he had seen those.
Oh, absolutely I would. Oh, come on.
Bless him, bless him.
I can get the VCR, we can bring it in.
Yes, that's the other thing. So if anybody wants to come up and take a look at those, I'm sure we can pull those out. I don't recommend it, but anyway. And of course, his technological edge also included videotaping every performance, concert, beach vacation, or whatever we were having to eat at family meals. Those of our family in North Carolina were privy to having Dad at the top of every staircase with his phone. Here we are. We're about to have dinner. And proceed to tell what was on the menu, whether you wanted to know or not. Dad was always on top of it. His talent grew for his love of his iPad and taking pictures with his phone to send us things like how much snow was in the backyard, which was followed by a video of the snowfall and a weather forecast for the next few days. So,
Gotta get it all down.
that's right. Dad had it in tow. I'm also grateful for his fashion sense. Now, those of you that know me and my brother and sister would probably agree that I was always the one concerned about fashion. And Craig would tell you all about the various hairstyles throughout the years. But Dad didn't really care what others thought of his wardrobe, and that clearly made him a trendsetter in his own right. His love of Sire Power hats and Under Armour shirts was unmatched. But we also can fondly remember his minimalist, brazen, nudist style of strutting through the house with total disregard of who might be sitting in the kitchen. And I can attest to the fact that every in-law in our family has been privy to seeing Dad and
some friends.
And friends. Bless y'all for putting up with Dad and seeing things that you can't unsee. We certainly lived through it, so we understand.
He was leaving his straw, manure, and everything in the laundry room, not tracking it through the house like I told him.
I appreciate that. We can still laugh about it. We can still laugh about it, yes.
Honey, that habit outlasted the straw.
Yes.
Hard to break old habits.
I also appreciated my dad's creativity. I realized that even though some of Dad's methods were unconventional, what he was really teaching me was about creativity. Thanks to Dad, I can think of multiple uses for duct tape, most recently holding together his eyeglasses that were chewed on by my 2-year-old Labrador Retriever. But even though it's humorous, Dad's way of pushing through and finding a new way to solve the problem resonates loudly. He wasn't going to give up. He would find a new way to solve the problem. I guess that's why I found myself calling him to ask his advice last spring when I planted my very first garden. It was really, really cold, even into the middle of May, and despite my best efforts to cover my little pepper plants to keep them from freezing, they still got zapped by the frost. I called Dad, feeling very frustrated, and he calmly reassured me, as only he could, saying, "Oh, don't worry. Just leave them alone, give them some water and some fertilizer." He further added, "Don't be quick to give up on them." The peppers never bore fruit, but I left them, just like Dad said, and gave them water and fertilizer. I also got some new pepper plants, planted them right next to them, and they bore fruit. But thanks, Dad. I also am grateful for his sense of adventure. Dad was curious and always interested in hearing about what we were up to, especially if it involved travel. If you had to name something that he loved as much as his family, trains, and the farm, it would be his next planned trip. Dad was never lost, and on our long car rides to North Carolina each summer growing up, the nearest bathroom or a restaurant was always just down the road a bit. Just down the road a bit. Tell that to 3 women in the car. Doesn't work very well. But we were patient with Dad, and we did go just down the road a bit. His quest to see as much of the world as he could, with Mom reluctantly in tow, took him across the pond to London, Switzerland, and northern Italy. COVID stopped their European river cruise, right, Mom? Last summer. And Tad and I were excited to join them in Paris to give them a real taste of French food in the culinary capital of the world. And just a side note, I was thinking about this. One time Dad and Mom came up and we took them to a restaurant in New York where they had cheeses from all over the world. Well, Dad was amazed because he didn't know there was stuff beyond cheddar. And it was really amazing that sheep, well, goats, of course, but sheep, cheese, sheep. Dad was pretty excited about that. So sorry we couldn't take him to Paris to let him experience more about the cheese. I'm sure that the one reason I moved to New York, a love to see what is beyond the familiar, is because of the adventure gene that I get from Dad. I tried to make sure that any trip I went on, I sent pictures to Mom and Dad, and after returning, our download of the trip had to reference a map or two to get the exact locations, which airport was closest, what modes of transportation were taken at every juncture, and of course, what was eaten at every meal, and bonus points if I passed any farms or cows along the way. Because if anyone knows Dad and any of his trips, you know he found a farm, visited the farm, talked to the local farmer, and could tell you how many cows were on the farm. But most of all, I'm grateful for time. Time that was given to us 17 years ago. Doctors told us he wasn't going to live when endocarditis and staph infections ravaged his body. Dad proved them all wrong, of course. With that stubbornness, he gave me a miracle for my wedding. And a few months later, walking me down the aisle, a very long church aisle, on a hot day in May, I remember saying to Dad how the tears shed by everybody were not because of the beautiful bride. And Dad said, well, that was not my intention. He gripped my arms tightly as we danced the father-daughter dance, and I was pretty thankful for all that strength training I had done to prep for not only getting the toned arms for the wedding, but also to hold Dad up. The time that Dad gave us helped him to get to know Kaylee and to meet Duncan, Teddy, Cooper, Christopher, and Griffin. He traveled parts of the world he would never have seen with Mom. He celebrated 53 years of marriage, witnessed graduations, first communions, performances on grand opera stages, and school concert venues. He cheered on sporting events, cherished time with dear friends, and discovered the joys of cutting everyone's lawn. Most of all, Dad showed us how to live life in the best way he could, his best life, right here. And so I close with the sentiments of a Quaker grace we say every night at dinner. Dad, we are truly grateful for you and for our many other blessings. Amen.
Okay. Oh, wow, this is long. All right, Even though I feel as though words alone cannot show how thankful I am for him. Today, my ultimate goal is to express my gratitude. Pop was a lot of things. A great mentor, supporter, and influencer, and more so, an awesome grandfather. Even a jokester at sometimes, which was my personal favorite. Have you ever heard about his days at Rutgers playing water polo? It's such a hilarious story. Bizarre, but hilarious. He taught me everything from how to farm tobacco to naming everyone on his high school track roster, and even a dissertation of the perfect root beer float at Friendly's. Nevertheless, he played the role of a grandfather perfectly. He certainly made a big impact on me and will be a very important piece for the future. Though, the most important thing that I've learned from him was how the septic system works. The fluids go out and the solids stay in. Thanks, Pop. Love you.
Can you guys hear me? Oh, that is loud. Hi, I'm Christopher Van Norden, and Pop was an amazing person, friend, and grandfather. We will always remember him forever and ever. Now, we all know that he is technically gone, but he's still with us in our hearts. Hold on, give me a sec. Trying to remember. Oh, I got it. Okay, we're gonna skip that part. These are a few things that I liked about Pop. He had amazing jokes. He always cracked me up a lot. And my mom says that I am the weird person in the family because I do a lot of funny faces, but I kind of feel like I inherited that from Pop. Once every while, he gave me one of these. We always took gator rides with Cooper, occasionally Teddy, and Griffin. And I always loved how on gator rides he gave me a piece of candy. And I'm holding off from them, so my tummy doesn't hate me. He was the best grandfather I ever had, but the only because I never met my other one. I'm trying to get through this. He always gave me that same picture of clothing he wore. He always wore that, he always wore that like gray shirt. I always picture him in a gray shirt.
Gray shirt.
And the occasional black belt. I don't really remember any of the foods he liked, but I know that he loved all the foods that Mama made us. Thanks, those were good. I especially loved how we both shared our love for cookies. And I loved going down to the farm, and he showed me everything. I think once earlier today, Cooper showed me a place in there, and I feel like Pop showed me that. He was really an amazing person, and I feel like that we'll never forget him. Even if I was in a sad mood, I could always give him that share of a smile. That always that always smile that I gave him. And I loved my time with him. And earlier today, when I didn't get to see him for most of last year because COVID. Thanks a lot, COVID. And the last time I got to see him was, what is it? Duncan. The most, now there was not really a bad part about coming there, but the least favorite part was driving there. And it took 2 hours to get there, but I still had to push through to see him. And I'm gonna cherish every moment.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, hello. I guess if you don't know me, I'm Kaylee. I'm the oldest and the only granddaughter. Should I say, not grandchild. But because of that, I always remember we'd always go out to eat, and Pop would always say, "Oh, this is my granddaughter, and she was born at 1 pound 11 ounces." To anyone. We didn't even know the waitress, and the waitress would be like, "Okay, what do you want to eat?" Like, she would not care at all. But I always would have to like hide my head because Pop would always somehow slip into conversation that I was 1 pound 11 ounces when I was born. But no, I feel like Pop definitely, there's really no words that I could express the 20 years of life that I had with Pop, and he was such an, I don't know, just inspiration to me, and was, yeah, my father figure. I'm talking off the cuff here, so sorry, it's kind of all over the place, but I don't know, I mean, he was just such a great influence in my life, and I know my mom and I would always joke that Mom's and Pop's house would be like the dark ages because we'd never get out of there, but, or the Twilight Zone, should I say, because we would never get out of there because Pop would always find something to talk about. I would call him on FaceTime while at school, and he'd somehow talk about skunks or something, and I'd be like, "Pop, I have to go study for a final," but I definitely would, I don't know, I mean, I enjoyed those times that I would be on the phone with them for 2 hours or more, even though I would never get any of my work done, but it was definitely worth it. And then also, another story I have to tell about Pop is one time I was learning how to drive, and my mom would always hate taking me driving, but Pop took me to drive, and I remember I had no idea where we were going, and he was like, "Oh, just go straight," and I was like, "Pop, where do I go? Do I turn anywhere?" He's like on the phone, and I'm like, "Pop, where am I going?" He's like, "You're fine, go straight," and I was just like, but I don't know, I mean, he definitely was a great influence in my life, and like I said, I always enjoyed our 2-hour-long FaceTimes, whether that be about skunks or the weather in Harrisonburg. But he'd always ask me for pictures from my balcony of the snow and everything, but I'm definitely gonna miss those 2-hour-long FaceTimes. But yeah, cheers to you, Pop. Thanks for the 20 years I have with you.
Hi everyone. Oh, that's low. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Duncan. I'm the oldest grandson, unlike Kaylee. I just want to talk about, well, he did have the farm, he had everything that you all know him by. I want to talk about one of the lesser known things, his elaborate train collection, his toy trains. I remember I was younger, I should just preface this by saying recently, I remember my mom was looking through old videos, and she found one of Pop and my brother playing with trains. And Chris, he pushed the trains and they all fell off the track. But he was, I think, probably 2 or 3, so he was clapping. But Pop said, "Oh, why are you clapping? It's an accident." Very, very serious face to him. It I couldn't stop laughing, which was then followed by Chris farting and Pop said fuel for the train. So I mean, but I always remember when I was younger, he would take me downstairs to the basement. I'd look out, being probably the same height as the table that the trains were on, and I'd be able to see the vast amount of legs of the table underneath, and then he put me on the stool and I could see all the trains. And I just think that's pretty cool, because that's what you think when you're like 5. You don't really have expansive thoughts.
Choo-choo!
Thank you. Thank you for the sound effect. Yeah, it was great. I also remember he would take me into what is that room called? The porch where his computer is? How it is? He'd take me to that porch area, he'd put me on the big old Mac computer, and he'd show me videos of train crashes. Accidents. And so, now when I saw that video, I was a bit confused, because he'd show me these videos and then he act so disturbed by when happened. I mean, it's weird. Pop did a lot of things. He was a great guy. I mean, I always remember, but I'll especially remember him for his trains and all the moments we shared together. Whether it be through talking about things that I did, like singing, or just about septic systems, like Teddy said. He didn't shy out on the gross things of life. That's for sure. He told me about how he milked the cows, how he had to deal with all the gross things, which I'll spare the details for everyone's sake. But I'll miss him. We'll all miss him, but he'll all be there in our hearts. And thank you all for coming. But that's what I had to say.
Oh God, that's a lot of people. Okay. To start it off, I can say a lot of good things about Pop. These are the things that I appreciate and the things I love about him. When I was younger, we were on a gator ride. We saw a goose, and my pop told me that I should try and fly on it. I was young enough to believe this. I was actually close enough, but he said he got nervous to my dad when I was close. Secondly, he taught me how to fish. He would tell me what to do and not to do. Lastly, Pop grew hands down the best peas, but of course I'm allergic. They're still the best peas in the world. Thank you, Pop. Hello.
I'll do it for you. Do you want me to hold it? Do you need help?
I just.
Okay.
Me too.
Do you want me to hold the microphone?
Okay. I even have this coupon. I have a coupon. I have a coupon. It says Pop owes me a lunch.
Well, you got it today.
Well, Mom, it looks like you're buying. And I'm hungry. Oh.
Good job, Paul.
Wait, you can actually catch it. I wish I could do yeah. Look, I just saw this. 80 feet up.
My God, my self is hungry.
Hello everyone, I'm Aaron Jones, fortunate enough to grow up with Bert as my uncle, my brother Christopher as well. All throughout our childhood we were lucky enough to grow up just up the road from Uncle Bert, which was truly a great experience. And even in later years when Christopher and I moved away, always a pleasure when we would come home and visit our mom and get a visit from Uncle Bert on the Gator. So just, tremendous amount of great memories with Uncle Bert. Some, in particular that stick out. Christopher and I are Christopher's a musician, I'm an accountant. Neither of us know how to fix a darn thing in the house at all. So the first call whenever we would come, even in our, in our 30s now, first call whenever we would come home and need something to be fixed, we would always call Uncle Bert, and never hesitated, always happy to come and help as soon as he could, and was really just, a true treasure. Never quite knew what stories you were going to get. When he did come up, we heard about high school gym class, heard about that one. Sounded like a wild time. But usually we also heard about his, great travel recommendations or about the family, and was just a great chance to connect. So some of the, I guess maybe two that stick out to me. There was the time where I managed, when I was still living at home off the street, I managed to get my car stuck in my own driveway, driving back from work. Because of some snow, I slipped off the driveway. And it was late at night, so I didn't call Uncle Bert that night because I figured he was asleep. But first call in the morning was to Uncle Bert. I'm pretty sure I woke him up, but lo and behold, first one I called, and first one to kind of help come up the road and try and pull me out. So it was a great experience. The other one, I'll say, there was only one time that I can think of where there was slight hesitation when we called Uncle Bert for some help, and that was the time that I found a snake in our basement. Oof. And this was, just shocking to me, even though I grew up on a dairy farm, not that fond of snakes or really rodents or any sort of critters, but was truly shocking. I sort of froze, and then I went up to the first floor, and I said, "Mom, what do I do?" And she said, "Call Uncle Bert." So I called Uncle Bert, and I said, "Uncle Bert, I have a snake in the cellar. What do I do?" He said, "A snake?" And he didn't believe me. He hesitated. But lo and behold, he came up to check it out. But by the time he had come up, the snake was gone. It was there. I swear it was there. He didn't believe me. He said, "No, it must have been something else." So he went back home. About 2 weeks later, I got a call, and he said, "Aaron, I believe you. I have a snake in my basement." I said, "I told you." So, and then even after that, as it turns out, I don't think he was very fond of snakes, but don't think he enjoyed them. But even then, we had additional snakes after that, and lo and behold, we would call Uncle Bert, and he would, because he was a little tougher than I was, he would manage to get rid of them for us. So it was always there when we needed us. When we needed him, he was always there for us, and just a ton of great memories.
So just like Aaron said, I feel so blessed to have Uncle Bert, for an uncle. Remember the great conversations. I loved talking travel with Uncle Bert. I just loved talking anything with Uncle Bert. And it was, just like Aaron said, it's truly a highlight when I would come home and visit Mom, if Uncle Bert stopped by on the Gator and we had a visit. Even things that were not fun, like moving salt with Uncle Bert, it actually was fun because it was with Uncle Bert. He needed 3 or 4 hours to move salt instead of 10 minutes, but... And if we talked travel, you might have needed 4 or 5 hours, but that was really great. And the other thing was just, he was a little obsessed with the lawn, but he was also so super helpful. And so I remember one of the funniest moments, Mom's lawnmower had broken, and I think it was in the shop, and it was going to be in the shop for a week or two to get fixed. Well, Uncle Bert was gracious enough to loan us one of his, and he said, "Oh, I'll come up and pick you up in the truck, and we'll load the lawnmower on the back of the truck, and I'll drive it up to your mom's, and then you can mow the lawn." So that was the plan, and that was how it was supposed to work. But I remember about half an hour of trying to get the lawnmower onto Uncle Bert's truck. It was clear that that was not going to happen, so we were on to Plan B, and Plan B was, "Oh, Christopher, I'll drive the lawnmower on the road at 3 miles an hour, and you drive my truck behind me with the flashers on, just to protect me." And I said, "Okay, Uncle Bert, no problem, we'll do that." Only thing was, I was in my lawn mowing clothes. I didn't have my driver's license or anything. I said, "Do you think that matters, Uncle Bert?" "Oh, no, not at all. Nothing bad's gonna happen." So we got out of Uncle Bert's house driveway, turned left past Grandma Jones's house, just past Grandma Jones's house, and I look up in the mirror, there's flashing lights. And I thought, what are the odds? Not one policeman, but 2 police cars pulling me over. Uncle Bert's driving the lawnmower, and of course, can't hear anything, so he keeps going. And I thought, just my luck, he's going to keep going and turn into Mom's driveway, and the police are never going to believe what I'm doing here. But he did see, luckily, in the nick of time, and he turned around, and I started telling the policemen what was going on, and they were not too happy. But when Uncle Bert got there and sweet-talked them, it was all okay. So just a wonderful example. And I guess one more quick story. After our dad died, he just, was almost like a second father to us, just looking after us. And I remember one time going to college, he would come up to college and literally pick me up and take me back home for a college break. And it was like a 4 or 5 hour drive each way. He did it, and I think the only stop he had in the middle was I treated him to a royal meal at our college dining hall. And he loved it. As Uncle Bert, he didn't take much to make him happy with food. And I think the whole 4.5 hour, 5 hour drive back, all he did was rave about the dining hall. And he still raved about that dining hall years and years ago, so he was truly special. We'll greatly miss him.
For the ones that are here that does not know me, my name is Ephraim Smith. My wife, Carolyn, and son, Sterling, and daughter, Crystal. We're from the Greenville area of North Carolina.
And Will and Weston.
And grandchildren, Will and Weston. I don't see them right now. There it is. But anyway, Bert and I go back a long time. He was a couple years younger than I am. And when I first got to know him, we were first cousins. And this string of first cousins, there was 7 of us that used to meet regular. Our mother, Aunt Doris, my mother, and a sister and one brother. We would always meet in Bethel, North Carolina. That was where they were born at. And every around Christmas time, Aunt Doris and Bert and Stevie would come down. I look at the boys that are here today, they are well behaved.
Relatively.
But I think we were lacking in that respect when we were growing up. And then as we grew up, I think Bert got married first, and I was probably next. And we became closer. We talked to each other on telephone, and we went to trips. The first trip that we went to was went to Hawaii. And I think up to that time, that was probably in the late 80s or 90s, I don't remember the date. But it's the first time I had ever been on an airplane.
1992.
1992, I was told.
Their 25th wedding anniversary.
Okay. But this was a trip that lasted, these trips lasted for many years. Every year Bert would get together, Connie and Carol would get together, and they'd plan a trip to someplace in the United States most of the time, or down in the Caribbean, and we would go. And for probably a week, a few days, and it was a time of joy. And Bert was always one that mapped out the itinerary of where we would go, how long we would stay there, and what we would see. And most of the time, it always wasn't on the regular roads. It was off on the unbeaten trails that we went. And I know Connie sitting back there now, she's just thinking, said, what am I going to say next? Bert had this idea that we were going out west and we were going to stay at a breakfast and area that you could have, they had breakfast and lodging. Well, when we drove up this place, I looked way across the field over there at this house and this so-called barn, and I thought to myself, what in the world has Bert run us up on that? And I felt fairly good. And Bert, Connie, and Carolyn went in to greet the people. They knew we were coming. And as I was sitting in the car waiting for them to come back, I saw something run across the backyard. I thought for a minute, I said, it can't be. I've never seen one that big. It was a rat big as a jackrabbit. Come out from under the doorsteps where they were. I knew right then that we weren't going to stay there that night. Needless to say, we didn't. I don't remember where we stayed, but it wasn't there. But it was a joyous time when we got together. We traveled from Alaska to up in New England, Florida, Caribbeans, and Hawaii. And I think we went down to Mexico one time. Went to California, to all three valleys. And every time we go out there, we went one time in the northern part of California, the Napa Valley. I didn't know much about California, but I found out what the Napa Valley was noted for. There was wine companies all up and down. And they had signs out, and come in, enjoy some wine, taste it. Well, we stopped at this, probably the first two, and I have many faults, but alcohol is not one of them. But they would pour you a little glass of wine. I said, it looks so good. I said, I can't drink that stuff. It just didn't taste good. So I catch Bert looking the other way, and I take my glass and pour in his. And he was driving the car. And after about 3 of those places, I noticed Bert going back to the car. He was sweating profusely. And he gave me the keys and said, Avery, you better drive. Needless to say, we didn't stop at no more and it was an enjoyable time. And I'm thinking about one time that we went to Las Vegas. I'd never been to Las Vegas. Never seen nothing like that. And Bert got the idea we needed to go see a show. Well, I didn't know what kind of show. I had no idea what he was talking about. I was from the country. I had never seen nothing like this. And we went into the show and watched it. And I would just say that good housekeeping wouldn't recommend it. I'll let it stay there. It's one of these situations that needs to be left under a tombstone. But we did have many enjoyable trips, learned a lot, met a lot of people. Bert was the kind of person could walk into a western town or a town in Alaska and he'd find somebody to talk to. And he wouldn't have to go far. The first one he met, he talked to him. But thinking about his life that we celebrate here today, I think about what the book of Ecclesiastes says in the Bible. There's a time to plant, there's a time to grow, there's a time to harvest. And today we are harvesting the thoughts and the attributes of our friend and our family, Bert Jones. And the attributes that he had is instilled in us that knew him. And we need to pass this on to these future generations. Thank you.
The look of horror on your guys' eyes right now.
I would like to talk to him on the side.
Make sure you have the swimming lens on, because I've got this Coach Andy Reid thing going on here, you know, just... before I go into my stand-up, Christy, you're turning 50 this year, right? Yes. Mom, I need every email address and every phone number so we can have a nice 50th for her. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Okay. My name is Bill. I'm Christy's husband, and I'm going to share one quick story before we have to, my sons and I have to depart. We have to travel to Hershey. It's called a brush of greatness, or in other words, my brush with underwear, aka meeting your in-laws for the first time. So I've been dating Christy for some time, and when you know things are going good, there's a certain point you're going to meet the family. And sure enough, I met my future mother-in-law back at Christy's house. She was babysitting Kaylee one day, and she made me feel warm and welcome. She was very polite. Okay, that went well. Then comes meeting Dad. I remember walking into the house. She was in the kitchen. Christy brings me in, looking for Dad, and all of a sudden he comes out of the mudroom in an Under Armour shirt and boxers. And I'll never forget it. Now, how many of you met your in-laws wearing underwear for the first time? Anybody?
Sort of.
Sort of?
You. And he's still married to you.
Hey, Christy was freaking out. You're not going to leave me. You're not going to leave me. You know, she was like nervous for a couple weeks. You're going to leave me because I'm like, no. No, but that's, you know, we all live in this world where people make judgments of everyone for any little thing. I didn't care they was wearing underwear. I thought it was funny. Be honest with you, it was a way to break the ice or whatever, and he certainly did. And I guess I'm not the only one who's met Bert in his underwear from what I've heard today. But, you know, he's always made me feel warm and welcome and part of the family. When I came, you know, with Christy in, 2011 we started? Always made me feel like a big part of the family. And later on, as the years went by, I started to go on the Emerald Isle vacations and would bring both of my boys. And he taught my boys how to fish in the ocean. I think he caught a couple piranhas, a hammerhead shark, you know, a couple whales, things like that. Always bait the hooks and would teach them how to fish. And I'd be laying there in my weekend at Bernie's moment, underneath the canopy, just relaxing, and he's teaching my kids to fish. And I
also how to get the hooks out of our hands.
Exactly. Okay. So
untangling the wires from the fishing line.
So you know, I just wanted to say thank you to Mom and to you know, Bert for making me and my boys feel a big part of this family. But I'll just never ever forget my brush with greatness, meeting my father-in-law for the first time in his underwear. It broke the ice. It was just a moment in time. You just have to laugh, and you know, I think that's the way he was. From what I hear from every story today and every story that I've heard down from time, it's the underwear. It's not caring how you look. It's about the person that you are. And if you go out and you treat people with respect, you treat people with love, and you're outgoing and kind, I think that's what we need to take away from today. Doesn't matter what you wear, it doesn't matter your haircut, it doesn't matter, you know, the money in your wallet, the car you drive, whatever. It's about how you treat people and how you respect people. And Bert was one of those people that just treated everyone with love and respect. And that's something that resonates with me today. And, you know, I've watched Christy, you know, these last couple weeks. You know, I know everything's been hard for you to try to keep going and moving forward. And it's been tough because everyone here today, we said goodbye to a great, wonderful man. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for letting me be a part of this great family. And my experiences with Dad were wonderful. But, so Brady and Charlie, I want you to come up here for a second. You kids are growing up to be young men. So when it comes time to meet your future in-laws, if you meet your father-in-law in underwear, you've got it made. You're in. You don't have a thing to worry about. All right? So let's leave here today with a laugh and a smile. Remember the good times. You know, move forward as Bert was how would want us to. And it's, you know, just, I know it can be painful when someone leaves, but we just have to move forward. Remember all the great memories. He's still around us. He's still watching. Up in heaven, wearing his underwear. And, you know, he took on my two boys and made them feel part of the family. And that's something that I'll always treasure. And I want you guys to learn a real big lesson. All right, like I said, you meet your in-laws in the underwear, you're good. All right, so thank you very much.
Hi everyone, I'm Tad Van Orden. I'm Kara's husband. With so many wonderful, wonderful stories and anecdotes that we've heard so far, I'm going to keep this brief. Bert really was like a father to me. I lost my father 30-odd years ago, and becoming part of this family and having both Connie and Bert there for me all these years has certainly been a blessing. And this has been touched on this afternoon, but I think really the most outstanding trait someone can have is to love being with other people and to love meeting other people and to love connecting with people. And that's something, as we've seen, that Bert just had probably as much or more than anyone that we know. And that was always an example to me, because I'm a little bit shy. I'm not a super outgoing person, and it was always terrific to see how Bert just made everyone feel like they're his friend, and make everyone the gift of making everyone he talks to feel like he is interested in them. That's just a wonderful trait that I was always appreciative of in Bert. And the other outstanding quality, of course, is just that when you're with him, it's fun, and you have good times. And I have so many wonderful memories. I'll share one little anecdote that involves Craig. We would go down to Carolina in the summer every year, and going back earlier in the years, we would play some golf. And one of the other great things about Bert was that his golf game and my golf game were pretty comparable. So when I play golf with very good golfers, I'm a little self-conscious about my errant game, but playing with Bert and with Craig, for that matter, really, I never really felt that. So that thank you for that. But we had, it's funny the things you think about. We had this one game we went out, one afternoon we went out, and it was, it's August in North Carolina, so it's hot and sticky. And Craig and I are in one cart, and Bert's in the other cart. And then right in the middle of the round, it just becomes a monsoon. I mean, the water, everything. It is Noah getting ready to build the ark. And Craig and I were absolutely soaked. If we had jumped in the ocean and gotten back in the cart, we would not have been more wet. And we kind of come up, we were on opposite sides of the fairway, and we come together with Bert in the other cart. And Bert points out that the golf carts actually have this windshield that you can pull up that would keep some of the water from hitting you. And it was just like Laurel and Hardy. Craig just kind of looked at each other like, oh, okay. That would have been nice to know like 15 minutes ago. So it's stories like that, and just such a kind person. Christopher and Duncan go to a school in New York that has Grandparents' Day in the spring, and it's a wonderful thing. The grandparents all come and can see the kids in, like, you know, lower grades. And my mom would come. My mom was the only grandparent on my side of the family that our boys have known, Gloria. Gloria is turning 98 in May, she, you know, Gloria, she's a fairly proper lady, and you know, some people she likes and some people she doesn't like as much. And Bert was her favorite person in the world. And we would, it was great because, you know, she was a little, now she's quite handicapped, but even back then she needed a little help getting around, and Bert would wheel her around in her wheelchair at Buckley School on Grandparents' Day. And for years, I would call Mom and say, okay, Grandparents' Day is coming up, and the first thing she said, well, is Bert going to be there? Yes, Mom, Bert is going to, oh, okay, I just so love seeing him and having him help me around. And that's just the effect that he had on people. And the only other thought I'll share is this quality of connecting with people and just loving to be with people. The other person I knew that had that quality was my own father, who was a very kind of proper city boy from New York. He didn't know one end of a cow from another, but he loved people. He loved talking to people, and he loved meeting people, and I always saw that quality in Bert. And so I can think that Bert and Langdon, that was my dad's name, are now up above together and can meet each other, because I'm sure they would just be super friends. So thank you all.
But yeah, for those of y'all that don't know me, my name is Sterling Smith. I'm one of Cousin Bert's North Carolina cousins, along with my mom, my dad, my sister, and my two nephews. And I just want to first off just say that Cousin Bert, he was more like an uncle to me than a cousin, and Cousin Connie was more like an aunt. My sister Crystal and I, we are very close to Christy and Karen Craig and their families, and we had a lot of good times together, especially at the beach. And I just want to share just a few short stories with you. I just want to first off say I'm no way as funny as Cousin Bert, but for the sake of Cousin Bert, I'm going to try to make these stories funny. So just bear with me. All right. First off, one of my first remembrances of Cousin Bert, I was probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, and we would go to the beach down in Emerald Isle, and Cousin Bert taught me the love of the ocean. And for those of y'all that probably have figured out, I was the small cousin. I'm not much bigger now as I was back then. But anyhow, we would go in the ocean and we would ride rafts, and I'd look at the ocean, I'd look at Cousin Bert, I'd look at the ocean, look at Cousin Bert. I was like, I don't know about this Cousin Bert. You know, the waves, they look kind of big. Don't worry, Sterling, just follow me, I'll take care of you. And take care of me he did. What they would do, this is no joke, this it's a true story. They would actually like tie me to the raft, or either Cousin Bert would take one of his big arms and hold me so I wouldn't fall off. And then my other cousins, Christy, Carrie, Craig, and Crystal, they would all surround the raft so that I wouldn't fall off, when the waves hit. So I was pretty secure. And we would go out to the sandbar, and of course, my cousins, they know that I can't see that well. I've had visual problems since I was young. I couldn't see the shore, but man, we would go out way far. Man, it's like, are we gonna get back to shore? I sure hope so. I know Cousin Bert, like I say, everything worked out with him as well as my other cousins. And the other story that I want to tell you about is that when my family, when my mom and my sister Crystal and myself, we would go to visit Cousin Bert and Connie in the springtime around Easter, around April. And we would all be in the living room asleep because Cousin Bert, he would have to go wake up early, to milk the cows. And for those of y'all that probably know, Cousin Bert he didn't have light feet, he had heavy feet. And he would come in the living room and he would stomp, and it was like a herd of elephants. And it was scary to me, but very few things kind of scare me, but actually that did. But anyway, that was another good memory. But I just like to say that Cousin Bert always made us feel welcome. He always wanted us to be a part of whatever he was doing, especially me, because he knew that I couldn't see well and do like my other cousins could. But that's something that always will stick out to me. And I know that we're going through a tough time with grieving. But one thing that does actually help me is my faith in Jesus Christ. And whatever goes on in this life, Jesus can always help you, and to put your trust in Him. And I know that Cousin Bert will always be with us in our heart and mind. And we're always going to be a part of the people that we meet. So my dad says, and it's true. And Cousin Bert will always be with me, and I love him, and I love my New Jersey cousins. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Myers. I grew up with Craig. I was my best friend growing up, and I had a lot of my childhood memories of Mr. Jones, both from a family friend to someone I could talk to and spend summer trips together. And as Craig just reminded me today, he was also a boss of mine at one time when I was having to unload bales of straw. So, but our two families were very closely knit over the years. Both my sisters and myself, my mom and dad, and we went through a lot of good times and some tougher times. But I really cherish all those days that we were able to spend together. And my memories of Mr. Jones. And I think Tara mentioned about those long trips down in North Carolina, and that's probably one of my favorite memories growing up in those trips, hanging with Craig. And it was those like 9-hour trips. We would drive down, and then I think we finally arrived at Pizza Inn or something. It was always to eat the chocolate chip pizzas, but it was always great to visit with the Smith family and the rest of the cousins down in North Carolina. And I always remember too getting up at 4:30 a.m. and I can't count on my hand right now the number of people that would typically wake up at 4:30 a.m. and then probably even less. The people actually are happy or in a good mood at that hour of the morning. I don't know if I could ever do that, but that's why I always remember Mr. Jones. He worked hard, and And he loved his family, and he took a lot of joy in life, and you can see from all the pictures and even all the stories I heard today. It seemed like he really enjoyed every moment. So, and I'm thinking about North Carolina too, and we were looking at the one picture of the fish, and I heard someone say that Mr. Jones taught you how to fish. He also taught me how to fish, and I think it was one and only fish I ever caught in my lifetime. Down in North Carolina, and I think Craig and I were boogie boarding, probably with Sterling, trying to get ourselves back to shore. And I think we saw like schools of bluefish swimming through us, and we were like, all right, well, this is a good time. And I think Mr. Jones was already like patiently like fishing for about 4 or 5 hours, trying to catch that perfect fish. And Craig and I ran in and just kind of like, we'll throw it in. And it was the one and only catch, but I caught a big flounder fish. I think Mr. Jones was even way more excited than I was about it. But, we took a picture, and I remember saying to him, I was like, oh, okay, this is good. Should we throw him back now? And I think he looked at me with the most shocked and puzzled look, and like, what are you talking about? This is dinner. So it's probably the only time, probably insufficient payment for all the chocolate chip cookies and iced tea I drank over the years, but that was my one night I treated the Joneses to dinner. Yeah, it's just, it's great to see everybody, think about the memory, all these funny stories. I know my mom, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, have been great special friends for my mom. Mr. Jones also was her Mac support. I know my mom would call and needed help with her Apple because everybody said, oh, I need technology. And I said, if it's more than a 10-minute wait on the phone with Apple, call Mr. Jones. And he'd probably be able to fix it quicker. So, it's a lot of good memories, and, we'll miss him. Great. Thanks.
I always feel a little more comfortable when I have a little desk. I am Gina's dad. I'm Sam. This is the perfect opportunity to thank Bert Jones in front of his friends and family. Thanks, Bert, for all of the information I'll ever need concerning soybeans, milking cows, and you have to ask his immediate family for this information on the swim team from Rutgers in the 1960s. I am not allowed to go into the story in front of anybody who's under 10 years old. Not a good story. All right. Thank you, Bert, for all the great stories you told the family every holiday. That's probably the one thing I'm going to miss most about Bert, or the great holiday stories that we heard. Very few people have a talent to tell a good story, and all of his friends and family know that Bert knew how to tell a great story. Thanks, Bert, for being an incredible role model for your son and daughters, and they saw through your example an outstanding work ethic. That is probably I think the one thing that's lost in this country now is work ethic, and Bert had one. Craig has one. My father had one. And I think that's the biggest thing that any father can show their son, is how to be a great role model and have a great work ethic and love of your family. Just a couple more pages. Thanks, Bert, for all the love and caring for my daughter Gina and our grandsons. From the everyday chores of how to plant crops, fishing trips, and definitely all the sleigh rides on the Gator after a snowstorm. Just great memories for the kids forever. Last page. Thanks, Bert, for being a good friend for only 18 years of my life, but I did the calculations last night. I knew Bert for 18 years, and that is 25.2% of my life. So for all the math people out there, you'll figure out how old I am. So again, thank you.
Every day is a good day. I think that Christy mentioned that. I think that that probably became Bert's mantra in 2003 when he had the difficulties, but It might have been his mantra before, difficult for me to say. But 2 days ago, on Thursday, I went and I got my second shot. And that was a good day. And I went up to the nurse, and she said, "Are you having a good day?" And I said, "Yeah." "What about you? You having a good day?" And she said, "Every day is a good day." Now, I can't remember anybody other than Bert saying that to me. And this is the day before yesterday. And then I asked her, you know, there's a reason that you say that. And she said, "Well, you know, this is the 5-year anniversary of the death of my daughter. She died at 27. You know, so that was certainly a trial for her. But back in 2016, so I was having a house built because we were expecting the daughter, and a very important thing at that kind of a point is to sell your existing house. And when I sold the existing house, that was a good day. And I talked to Bert, and I said, "Well, you know, great, I sold the house, but I don't have any place to live for a couple of months." And you were thinking of renting out to Doris's house. And I said, "Would you like to rent me to Doris's house?" And his answer was the correct answer. What do you think the correct answer was? He said, "I'll check with Connie." So he checked with Connie and rented Oksana and I the house. The two of us moved in. A little after that, our mother-in-law moved in as well. And a short time after that, we brought our daughter home. And he rented the house to the two of us, and all of a sudden there was the four of us. I was hoping he wouldn't increase the rent. He didn't. But the vision I have of Bert is that this is the month of August, and Bert's cutting the grass, and he's there with the hat. He's sweating. It is August. I don't know if he was drinking any wine or not, but it was August. It was hot. And you know, for that time, you know, Bert was always was helping us. Connie was helping us. Lisa was helping us. You know, was a nice thing. There was another day when if you're familiar with the show, the 2.5 Men, there was an episode, a character in the show. He set up the bedroom. There was all the trains, and he was in the middle of the room with the engineer's hat. The one day brought me to the basement, you know, to see the trains, and you know, the setup was amazing, way better than, you know, the Tova division show. But the one thing that Bert didn't have is the engineer's hat, and I thought if I was able to get him that engineer hat, it would have been a good day. But there's sometimes it's a good day because of the challenges, and sometimes it's a good day because of the blessings. But you know, it's always a good day.
Okay.